Ron Johnson, the Wisconsin Republican senator, sits on the Homeland Security Committee, Foreign Relations Committee, Budget Committee, a lot of crucial committees. Senator, good to have you.
Hello, Neil. Hope you're well.
I hope you are as well. Let's talk a little bit about, I know both parties have very different views on how to address the shootings like we saw unfold in Texas. But there is talk of a middle ground among Republicans and Democrats. Do you know what that middle ground is?
Well, first of all, there's nothing partisan about how America is grieving following another one of these tragedies. There have been a number of pieces of legislation offered by Republicans on the Judiciary Committee to, close some gaps in some of our gun laws, but the Democrats have always rejected those. It's always their way or the highway. What happened on the floor of the Senate yesterday is just a classic example. I was working with the parents of two of the Parkland victims on crafting a piece of legislation that was actually good enough that the previous administration set up the clearinghouse. This is called the Luke and Alex School Safety Act. It establishes a clearinghouse of school safety best practices. This would have codified it. These parents have been looking to pass this bill, codify it for years. I thought, in consultation with those parents, that perhaps we could get this passed by unanimous consent, but Chuck Schumer politicized it and he went down and objected to it. It's just sad.
All right, so I'm wondering, in New York, Republicans and Democrats, again, it's still early, Senator, to your point, are rallying around a measure that would, among other things, not only address some of the safety at school issues, the single points of entrance and all of that, but limiting guns sold to those under the age of 21, for example. What do you think of that?
Well, again, that wasn't part of my piece of legislation.
I know.
My piece of legislation would have actually directed people, schools, to government grants so they could fund some of these school safety initiatives. So, from my standpoint, gun laws ought to be basically state-based. Let states decide what they want to do in their particular states. And those gun laws, we already know, vary widely around the country. But that's really the place to enact these things, as opposed to some national standard, which, let's be realistic. I don't think there's a solution here in the federal government. There are very few solutions here in the federal government. I think the federal government either causes or exacerbates more problems than it ever solves.
Do you ever think, I know you don't see it as a gun-only issue, Senator, but we talk about a number of Republicans that espouse the view that this is a mental health issue. Governor Abbott was saying as much yesterday, that we don't address that enough. But you could make the same argument. Mental health issues are rampant across the globe, but they don't have the percentage of shootings and the severity of them that we do. They're not immune to them. New Zealand certainly wasn't immune to that and has some of the strictest gun control laws on the planet. And yet 50 plus people were killed in a rampant shooting a few years ago. So what do you make of the mental health issue and whether that has got to be part of where we go from here?
That is the problem. There's a sickness in our society. I've always said overall the solution is renewed faith, stronger families, more supportive communities. I don't think it's helpful that kids are spending so much time in front of a computer screen, playing these games, being alienated, bullying on social media platforms. We need to re-examine. We need to re-engage into society, have more events person to person. This is a society-wide problem, a society-wide sickness that is not going to be solved by some additional gun laws here in Washington, D.C.
Do you think there are some people, though, who shouldn't have guns?
Yeah, obviously. Former felons that have used them to commit crimes. People that are, truly mentally ill. But there are issues in terms of how you make that determination. These are hard things to determine.
But this fellow in Texas, Salvador Ramos, he legally bought his two guns. And now, of course, we didn't have the paper trail and the record, to your point. But do you think that would require maybe stiffer background checks?
No matter what you do, people fall through the cracks. You can't identify all these problems. You can't arrest somebody for a crime they haven't committed yet. These are difficult issues. But again, the solution lies in stronger families, more supportive communities, I would argue renewed faith. We've lost that. We stopped teaching values in so many of our schools. Now we're teaching wokeness. We're indoctrinating our children with things like CRT, telling some children they're not equal to others and they're the cause of other people's problems.
But these shootings, Senator,
there's
were
a
going
sickness
on long before CRT and wokeness, right?
Well, yeah, I think CRT's been going on under the radar for quite some time as well. Wokeness has been. Liberal indoctrination has been. This is a much larger issue than what a simple new gun law is going to. It's not going to solve it. It's not going to solve it.
All right, we'll see what happens. Senator Johnson, thank you very, very much.